Okay, good morning.
Morning.
When Andrew told us he was moving us from Wednesday to Friday, I said, oh, people are gonna be so excited to hear about acquisitions on the last day. So can I get a woo woo for acquisition? Okay. Rhonda and I are both excited to be here and talk to you about acquisitions today and what is coming in the big acquisitions 2.0 upgrade. So Rhonda is going to kick things off by talking to us a little bit about what acquisitions is.
Okay, so acquisitions is a way, it's a support for your library to bring into one spot all of the things related to getting materials into your library, such as ordering, receiving, selecting, and then managing everything that comes in. And it helps consolidate all your vendor information into one spot, and it manages your budgets and helps you keep track of your funds so that you don't go over budget. And then it just streamlines a lot of the processes that you have and facilitates budget management. And it also connects with other modules within Koha, like cataloging. So that helps streamline things too.
So the lovely Sarah Brown from ByWater Solutions shared with us a little flow chart that kind of walks through what the current process in acquisitions is now, starting with EDI or non-EDI orders, and then walking through the entire process of, staging files if you're getting them from a vendor, walking through the creation of baskets, and then of course the invoicing and receiving process. This will be shared in our slides, and we'll also share it as a PDF. That way, if anyone wants this just for your staff or to share it with people, you can do that as well. But this is a good representation of the current workflow in the acquisitions module and the options that you have, whether you're doing regular ordering or EDI or Edifact ordering.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to take you through just a little bit of what acquisitions looks like right now and some of the functions and benefits of using acquisitions. And then I'll do just a real quick kind of live demo where we're just kind of poke at some of the different functions that we have. So let's click. So to get started with acquisitions, the first thing that you would do is set up a budget with funds. So Koha lets you set these up very flexible. Here is an example of a budget with funds, and then sub-funds, and then sub-funds, if you will. So our city has, tracks how much we spend, but they don't know what we've ordered. So the advantage of this in Koha not only shows you what you've spent, but it also shows what's ordered so that you have a better sense of what's left in your budget. So that helps you get a more accurate picture of where your money's going. And yeah, the ordered budget, the ordered stuff is approximately, because it's going to depend on, like for us, we have Ingram as a vendor, and we get varying amounts of discounts on different things, whether it's a university press or if it's a just regular press or things like that. So you get different discounts with that vendor. Plus we get processing, so that increases the price of the book. So we just put in close enough discount that we think kind of will average out over all the books in our Ingram vendor. So when the books actually come in, they may, the actual spent may change just a little bit based on how accurate your discounts were for the particular things that came in. So that was something I I was like, why is this happening? But we figured it out. The major benefit of acquisitions is that it streamlines your workflow. So it gives you one spot to track all the late orders across all your vendors. So you're not going to vendor A's website, looking at what's late there, then going to vendor B's website, checking out what's late there, going to vendor C, it's all in one spot. And you can say how late is late. Let's see all the stuff that we ordered 2 months ago that still hasn't shown up yet. So that's very handy. It also centralizes management of purchase suggestions, and Lori did a wonderful job of talking about that. So we'll just kind of leave it at that. It's one place where you can see what's been accepted, what's been rejected, where, you don't have anybody can get to it who has the permissions, and it's not just like one person that's getting all this information or one email thing that you have to go check. It makes adding the 9XX data super easy, especially if you've got EDI order set up, and that helps super streamline things. And so I kind of touched on the EDI. And then it's just a cost savings, because if you're not spending time data entry, all this kind of thing, you've got time to do other things. So you can save money that way. It also reduces errors, which is huge. It takes away a lot of the manual entry of things. So if you're, putting things into a spreadsheet, you could invert two numbers or mistype a number or something like that. With this, it just gets from your vendor right into your data or your koha, and the numbers match. No need for separate spreadsheets. And then the connection between acquisitions and cataloging is really helpful when you're trying to figure out what happened in this particular, why is it, we can't find this book on the shelf. So then you can quickly and easily go back and see, when did we order it? Was it received? Right from the catalog record. So that's super handy. And then one of the other things is a centralized location for all your vendor information. I don't know about you guys, but since 2020, we've had, 3 different reps for different companies. There's been a swirl, and to have a spot where you can keep all that information, because what I end up doing is searching through my email and seeing who was the last person that responded to me. That must be the one. So what I try to do is, once, you get the email that says, I'm leaving the company, so-and-so is going to be taking my place, go in here, update that information so that you've got the correct information. So the next time somebody comes and says, hey, Ingram is doing this weird thing, you can go and find who to contact that way. So that is really helpful. So this is the part where we do a quick look at a live system. We're going to click on this and hope for the best. Whoa, you guys can see it. I can't. Okay.
This
one? That one.
Yeah.
There. Okay. Now you can't either.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So they can see
Jason.
This, by the way, is the koha-US demo site that you can all gain access to if you wish to. Just talk to the education committee.
Yes.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yes. So this is where you go in and try things out. So things that I wanted to show you, the acquisitions module. The first thing is, I don't know if you noticed on the slide, All the sub-funds and sub-funds were indented and pretty. There's a bug out there that will fix this problem in the next release, but for now, it looks kind of funky. But you can definitely set things up. You can see the amounts that you have allocated. So yeah, so let's look at adult video. You know, we have $5,000 there. Then in the two sub-funds, we've got 2,000 for DVD and 3,000 for Blu-ray. And so the 2 and the 3 add up to 5. You have to do that math in your head. It'll yell at you if you get it over the amount. And then you can see, you know, this $30 was ordered, $25 was spent, and that means we've got that much left in our budget. So you can see all this, and for your entire budget, you can get as detailed or not with all of that. I'm going to, let's see, if you, so here we've got, this shows you the vendor and then any baskets that you have with that vendor that are active. If I do show all that, yeah, I just set this one up. So once this had stuff in it and was closed, then it would go into inactive status once everything was received. Let's rephrase that. And then if I go and just click on the title of the vendor, I can get the information about that vendor, you know, as much or as little that you want to put in here. You know, this is where you'd put your discount. If you pay taxes, you'd put your tax rate in there for this vendor. Excuse me, it's all in one spot. Here's your contact information, and you can indicate what roles that they have. And then if we want to look at a basket, this particular one has nothing in it. It looks like that. So you can add to your basket. Baskets are the term that Koha currently uses for things that are, you know, like in Ingram, it's called a list, and someplace else it's called a cart, and, you know, all those kinds of things. So it's that group of things that you want to do. So you can add to a basket. There's all these different options. So it's really flexible. You can go from an existing record, just put the title of the record in. You can order from a suggestion, from a subscription, from a blank record. You can copy existing orders from an external source. It's Z39. Yeah, I blanked on that. And then from a file. So if you have a list in Ingram and you want that to be in your basket, you can either one-click it over into a basket, or you can download and upload into your basket. And that's how you get stuff in there. I'm not going to take the time to actually do that. If you have, let's go back. And I'm just going to do a blank search. This will show you all of your vendors that you have. And I wanted to look at this one because in your baskets, once an item has been received, you will see this phrase received in front so that you know, okay, we got that one, but we're still waiting on these other ones. And if you sort it, all the receives will come to the top because they start with a parentheses. And the ones that you haven't received yet will fall to the bottom, or if you click it again, it'll be the other way around. So you can see what's going on. One thing I wanted to show was, so here's a record in Koha. There's the holding tab. You're all familiar with. If you've got acquisitions active, you can click on this tab and see that here's the invoice number, here's the basket, here's the order number, the receive date, so this should be in the library. If we can't find it, it did show up. And the price and things like that. So frontline staff can use that to, somebody comes up and says, hey, I want to, I can't find this book, or I think this should be here, or whatever. They can help use that. So I think those were the main things that I wanted to show. So now we get to go back here. Whoa. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Can you undo what you just did?
So we wanted to give a good look at what acquisition looks like today. And now Rhonda and I will talk a little bit about acquisitions 2.0, which is a complete revamp of the acquisitions module that the Koha community is working on. Rhonda and I have been fortunate enough to sit on this work group for the last 6 to 8 months.
Yes, yeah.
We've been meeting and talking about this, and we'll go through kind of the approach and deployment, talk about some of the big switches that we're going to see, and then we'll talk about future developments. Thanks, Jason.
Let me double check that. Yeah, everybody's in your notes. Hold on.
Okay.
I think that should be better.
Okay, thank you. So acquisitions 2.0 is a really big undertaking that the community is working on to rebuild what we currently have in the system. If you were at koha-US last year or watched the stream online, Kelly and I did a presentation, and we actually showed some of the things that we were working on last year. The original plan was to build a plugin so people could test it and look at it. But then we agreed as a community that it would be a little more quicker if we could roll it out in phases. So the first one you will see in the 2505. So for any ByWater supported partners, the week of September 22nd, when you're upgraded to 2505, you'll see the new vendors layout. And it's great because the page loads much quicker. So if you have lots and lots of vendors on one page, let's say hundreds, it loads very quickly now in a table view where you can easily jump into the vendor and edit. So that's going to be the first thing you'll see in the rollout. So this is just a list of our work group, and I just wanted to point these people out because they have been amazing and fantastic. Rhonda and I usually meet together like every 2 weeks. We get together for about an hour, and we broke it down into essentially different modules, the ordering process, talking about acquisitions and the ERM. So if you're using the ERM now, right now, the two modules do not talk to each other. So in acquisitions 2.0, the goal is to get that piece so you can identify both your electronic resources and your print resources in one spot. So this is just a nice representation of, we have individuals from the UK, from Germany, from France, from Montreal, and then of course, Rhonda and I here in the States. And so it's just been nice to get perspectives because we do things drastically different here in the States versus abroad. So it's taken a lot of time to think about processes, of how we do things here, how they do things, and then, kind of coming on that middle ground. So we've broken it down to kind of talk about the approach and deployment. We'll talk about the core module redesigns and then enhancements. A massive change, as Rhonda showed you, we call everything baskets now. We're changing that to purchase orders, order lines, and invoices. So one of the big things is the vocabulary and trying to make it consistent with all users. And then we'll wrap things up by talking about integrations and future considerations. So for the approach and deployment, again, we anticipate over the next 2 years, it will roll out in each release the updates for acquisitions 2.0. So again, in 2505, vendors are first. So vendor management is the big change. The first focus you'll see is a refreshed UI and UX, making sure that things load a little more quickly. The plan is to add a widget dashboard to the main page in acquisitions. So you can see things like workflow tasks, recent orders, invoices, and things like that. The second big approach you'll see is adding acquisitions into library groups. So for those of you that are part of a consortium or a network or a large multi-branch system, and you would like your acquisitions to remain separate from those within the consortium or the network, library groups will be able to do that for you. So that way you can have your own ledger, your own funds, your own purchase orders, your own vendors within the system. So that's a big undertaking. Actually, at our next meeting, that's our big topic of how we're going to break down permissions for library groups. So this has been great. And then, of course, the last big approach is the standardized terminology. We've tried to really look at industry standards to go with orders and order lines, which replaces baskets and orders. And then, of course, ledgers and funds, which replaces budgets and funds of what we have today. So we spent a lot of time in the early months
getting our heads around that.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'll talk a little bit about the core modules and how things will be broken down and kind of enhanced. So the first one will be the fiscal years. This is where we will be able to define the fiscal periods within the system. Now, of course, we can do that now with budgets, but the new breakdown, you'll see ledgers, which will be attached to a fiscal year, and that will allow us to manage one or more funds. Ledgers will include things like names, descriptions, and statuses within the system, overspends, encumbrances, and external IDs to outside systems, because we have a lot of libraries that work with, I'll use Cuyahoga as an example, because I know there's off the top of my head, is the Tyler system where they send all of their invoices to. And so if you're with your county or your city, you're probably sending them some type of reconciliation or list. And so that was really important to us to get that as a place within Koha. So when you report that information out, you have that external ID in there. As far as funds go, you'll see those will be attached to the ledgers within the system. You'll be able to set your currency just like you do now. It's interesting to talk to libraries in other countries because, for example, the German librarian said it's typical for them to order from the UK or
different currencies. Very different currencies.
Yeah. So it'll make it easy to define, like if you're ordering from different locations. As far as permissions go, with the tie-in with library groups, we want to make sure there's more granular permissions. So if you want individuals to view a budget rather than just have access to edit or update, there's going to be settings to allow that, to prevent individuals from making changes when they shouldn't. As far as vendor management goes, that's the first big one you'll see, again, in 2505. And that'll be integration with what we currently have. It'll still talk to the AC booksellers table. That's where it currently lives now. The big rollout, you'll see better UX improvements. We have if anyone's on a test server, you probably already have it on 2505, but any of us in the back have it on there. It's beautiful and it loads fast, and those are the big wins. You'll also be able to see vendors grouped together. So maybe you have consortial purchasing with a vendor and you have your own purchasing. through your library, you'll be able to define that as well. I'm going to go into a lot more details about the ordering process and receiving and invoicing. Get ready to have your mind blown. Receiving and invoicing are going to become their own modules. So right now it's a combined process. As you're receiving, you essentially do the invoicing at the same time. In Acquisitions 2.0, we're going to split those up, and I'm going to go into way more detail on my next slide. The last big thing you'll see is you're going to have a dedicated area for claims management. And so we really wanted to follow a way to facilitate automated claims. So if something doesn't come at the expected time, you can send out an automated notice. You'll be able to filter claims by a date, export them via CSV, and then also, of course, keep track of any statuses. And then, of course, integrate with EDI. We also talked about adding in a process for batch processing of claims. Again, just to make it easy for libraries that are ordering lots of information. Okay, so next we'll talk about purchase orders, order lines, and invoices. So again, this is a pretty big change because right now we refer to everything as baskets. And so what this is doing is we're going to be able to now create a PO or a purchase order within the system where you can add items from various sources, whether you're getting them from a book jobber, you're going out to do a Z39 search and bring, just an order record in, or you went to Amazon, whatever it may be. There will be order templates.
Yeah.
Really excited about this. This will be pre-configured templates that'll automatically populate default values for you. So if you're ordering the same material, repetitively, you can use that for copies, branches, and fund distributions. So again,
And you don't have to start with a vendor. So currently you need to select a vendor and then you build your basket. That functionality will all still be in there, but you will also have the option to just start building a basket that isn't tied to a vendor so that you can select some items and then maybe decide, oh, we're going to get it cheaper from them, so let's order it from them or whatever. But that is a very interesting concept.
while Rhonda says this, I want you all to start thinking about documentation.
Yeah.
Or perhaps joining a committee to help document all these new changes if you love acquisitions as much as Rhonda and I do. The other big thing is continuous orders. We spent a lot of time talking about continuous orders. Our friends in Germany are both academic.
Yes.
And we spent a lot of time talking about the process for bringing in continuing resources and electronic resources so you can better track those in acquisitions as well. So you'll see things like serials and standing orders, tracking renewal dates, and of course tying that in to the ERM. Now for receiving, this is going to be split from invoicing. So right now in the acquisitions process, what Rhonda showed you, essentially you receive an invoice at the same time in Koha. What this does is this will split it off from invoicing, and it essentially becomes its own process. So you'll have a dedicated area to do receiving within the system, manage unreceived items, and having just a better focus on options for vendors, libraries, and POs. You'll still be able to do the multi-line receiving. You can set fixed due dates. We talked a lot about libraries that use like leasing books.
Oh, yes.
And things like that. So you'll be able to set those type of expectations. You'll be able to manage your items, update unique tax or currency upon receipt, and you can set multiple workflows. This was another big one. So like if you only want to receive an invoice or invoice only, you'll all be able to do those at separate stages. So again, it won't be all compiled together like it is now. And then for invoicing again will become its own separate module in the system. You'll have a reconciliation report that's built in, that'll allow you to check against invoice data. So if you're doing EDI ordering or just physically receiving, items that are coming in non-EDI, you'll have built-in reports that will allow you to quick look and see what's actually come in and has been received versus what's on the invoice itself. You'll be able to prorate within invoice lines, and you'll be able to see things that are not linked to orders in the system. Think about this for things like stationery or printer cartridges. Somebody just asked us about this on the day that we had our acquisition SIGs, that they
Yeah.
wanted to track something. Was it you, Kim, maybe? Say it again. Like processing fees, things like that, things that aren't tied to a MARC record. So it'll make it a lot easier.
Yeah, and sometimes what we do is we'll get an order in from like India for everyone. I'm sorry, didn't mean to step on their trademark. And it just comes in, they just send us stuff. We don't specifically order it, they just send it to us and it comes in. And instead of having to put acquisition records in for each one of those books that come in, we just kind of put a big lump sum into the budget to show that the money was spent, but it doesn't have a connection to a specific MARC record. So that's one example as well.
Okay, so integrations and future considerations. So EDIFACT, we'll still move forward with the European EDIFACT standard and the US MARC orders. There'll be some tighter integration with the ERM module for e-resources, and tracking things like activation dates, because sometimes you'll pay for your resource and then you can activate it on a certain day. We'll replicate the exact same APIs that are available now and have consideration for future ones. Baker and Taylor, Gobi, Amazon are some of them on the list. And then this is a big one that there's been a bug in Bugzilla for a long time about some type of like task scheduler or task manager. And at first we thought about it just being written for the ERM or the electronic resource module as a way to get reminders when things were expiring or, having to contact somebody about terms. And the community at large said, it would be great just to have a task manager module that allows you to do any type of task, like a reminder to go run a report or check something, or, separate vendors because they merged with somebody else or they're separating, whatever it is. This will allow you to set tasks and you can assign those to people, and then people can see those tasks within the system. So that's a really big one. We haven't gone down too far of a deep dive into that yet, but that's on the roadmap. Yeah. Okay, so Rhonda and I wanted to talk about different ways that you can get involved if you want to be a part of this process.
Yes.
Of course, we have koha-US, and I'll let Rhonda talk about that.
Yes, we have koha-US. So we have, we mentioned the development committee, and koha-US puts money towards developments, one development each year or based on how much money we have. So that would be a way that koha-US could help with the acquisitions, beefing it up. The acquisition SIG meets monthly, and this is a great place to come and brainstorm and find out what other people are doing. I've gotten ideas from other libraries there that have helped streamline our workflows. And you can say, hey, especially after an upgrade, talk about the new functions. We'll often just go through the list of new functions for the release and work through them as a group and, you know, brainstorm on how we could use it and what kinds of cool things we can do with that. So,
And then for the community, there is in the Mattermost, which is our chat platform for the Kuha community, there's a channel that's called Acquisitions 2.0. So if you want to join the conversation and kind of hear what we're talking about, you can jump on there. All of our shared documents are pinned to that channel, so you could actually go through and see what we've been working on for the last 6 to 8 months. And it also gives a little, Michaela, who's in Germany, did a beautiful flow chart, wrote some scripts to kind of see what the process will look like. So if you're interested, you can jump on Mattermost and come into that channel. Okay, what kind of questions do you have for us?
This is where we need to shuffle microphones.
Okay.
Your microphone.
yes, you can.
You'll have to, share it. Jessie.
There is an online question.
Okay. Pardon me, sir.
There's lots of steps for Andrew involved in shuffling these microphones around. It's probably great exercise. This is George, and Eileen Chandler online says, when will one-click Ingram work? When we migrated in 2023, it was discussed as something just around the corner, and they're still waiting for it. So I don't know anything about that really, but that's her question.
Yeah, Eileen, that came out in one of the last releases, so that does work, and you can set it up. If you just submit a ticket, we can help you walk through the process.
There you go. That's the only question online right now.
Thank you.
This is Malachi from Brooklyn Law School. I have a question about, and I think this might be too granular, so you can tell me no, but I was interested in the non-mark ordering because our library tracks all of our purchases. Like if we're buying like food for a conference or like,
Yes.
I'm going to have to submit all of my requests or like all of my per diem stuff through Koha. And the way that we do that is we have a vendor and a basket and a bib that are all called like per diem or whatever. And so I'm curious about like what that's going to look like in the future, because that as a process is like stinky.
Yeah.
And so I'm super excited about this as like an improvement.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about this because a lot of people want that ability to track things like that. Again, printer cartridges, like we had lots of things that we said could fall into this. So we're building in, we're calling them invoice lines that are not linked to a title or order lines with a mark record. And so you'll be able to put them in there and say, catering or printer cartridges or whatever it may be. And so that was a big perk of things we wanted to make sure that it was not connected to a physical mark record.
This is Juliet from Rapid City. If we were just wanting to only use like ordering and receiving and not invoicing because we don't want to get into that weeds, is that going to work fine with that or?
Do you mean like not have to upload an invoice or just like?
Well, I guess right now our invoices, we just kind of don't really use them. We receive, it's connected because when we're receiving, but if we could just cut that consideration out of the step since it's a separate module now,
Yeah. I don't know. We can talk about it at our next meeting, Juliet, and get back to you.
Yeah.
We definitely did not talk about that as an option, but since it's separate, I don't see why not.
Huh.
Please hand it to Fred and then we'll go to George.
And Wally.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Fred, Washington Hospital Center. I would, for Malachi and others, I would like to share something, one of the many things that Heather and the cataloging SIG taught me, which was you can catalog anything. Anything will fit into a mark record, including, let's say crab cakes. Just put everything in the 500.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Thank you, Fred.
510.
Okay. That way, if any more online questions.
My question kind of goes back to what Malachi was saying. It's almost sounding like we can use this as a departmental budget. I mean, instead of having to keep up with multiple things, that we can put it all in a one-stop shop if we wanted to. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm from Hotchkiss. Do you have the ability to show what things will get turned on in what releases? Like, I know you have the 2505 laid out with new vendor layout, and I think there's a few other things on the page that showcase what's going to be. Do you have like a projection of what kinds of things will get turned on within the next 2 years with all the different releases, or are you not quite ready to commit to that level of granularity?
That is a great question. We are still finalizing. I think our next meeting is in 2 weeks, and we're doing library groups and something else. So we're not completely done with like the planning part of it. But the goal is, once the planning piece is done, then we'll build out a roadmap as to when it will go. The reason we saw the vendor management so quickly was because for that initial plugin piece, we focused on, those type of enhancements. So we were able to push those pretty quickly. A lot of the funds and ledger work is already done too for what we call budget management now. So I anticipate that will probably be the next phase that we'll see rolled out. We're also meeting while we're in New Zealand at KohaCon this year. So expect there'll be probably updates in late November, of what came out of that as well.
Anybody else in the room before we go back to George?
Well, this is George again. I guess my first question is, are you going to New Zealand, Robin or Rhonda?
I am not.
Oh. Well, I hope you get to go.
Yeah.
At the very least, you can work on this. The question online is from Barbara Johnson. She says, we currently receive and pay invoices at the same time. I'm a little concerned that the separate modules will make this process take more time. Can you guys comment on that?
Yeah.
From what I remember, you can do them at the same time. And you have the option to do them separately. So they're trying to keep all the function that we have now, but give people options to be more flexible if they need it. So if you want to receive and invoice at the same time, the new 2.0 will let you do that.
We miss you, Barbara, here in person.
Yes, very much.
That appears we've exhausted the questions. Thank you, Jessie and Rhonda.
Thank you.